Ladies and gentlemen, drivers, gig workers, and everyone in between, welcome to This Week in Rideshare podcast. I'm your host, Jared Hoffa. It is Friday, February 28th, and this week, flaws in Uber's security and safety, what Americans really think of AVs, and Tesla targets California. Legal Rideshare breaks it down. And from Legal Rideshare, I'm joined by the co-founder and lead attorney, Bryant Green. Bryant, happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Jared. We got some nice weather here in Chicago. Hopefully everybody's out having a good time today.
Yeah, it's like 50 degrees. I'm going to start a new holiday every year called the first year I wear the Legal Rideshare polo because
I love it.
it's finally warm enough to wear it. But I think tomorrow we're getting hammered with cold. I think it's going to be 30 degrees, which is
But
unfortunate.
that doesn't mean you can't bust out the margaritas tonight, you know?
That's true, right? Celebrate today and then just be sad tomorrow, I guess.
It's the
But
story of my life.
before we jump into the stories this week, I do want to make an exciting announcement. Actually, we are partnering with they're called GigU. You guys might have heard of them before. They were called Stop Club in Brazil. This was an app in Brazil geared to helping drivers with pay and transparency. Well, guess what, everyone? They're coming to the U.S. So they've now been branded as GigU, and they call themselves the ultimate high-performance tool designed to help drivers maximize earnings and work smarter. So they have two really cool features. One is called Cherry Picker, which you can hand pick the most profitable trips, which really gives you pay transparency. And they also have something called Secret Camera, which turns your phone into a discrete dash cam for added security on the road. So in Brazil, there's already 200,000 drivers that are using this app. It's now coming to the US. The creator and the company behind GigU have asked for at least 20 drivers to beta test the GigU app in this country. And again, it's going to be public to everyone really soon. But if you're interested, the first 20 people who go to beta.gigu.co and install the app and test it get $20 cash and the entire year paid up front of the app. You know, I highly recommend it. We've talked about Stop Club, which now is GigU. Really awesome team, great guys over there. And really, this is super pro driver. The idea here is for drivers to actually get transparency for pay and what they're making. Yeah, it couldn't be a better deal.
Yeah, totally agree. Everybody should go sign up, try to get those first slots because this is a real game changer. We talk all the time about transparency being necessary in rideshare, and here it is at your fingertips. So go get it. Now's the time. Don't wait. You get it for free. So let's go.
Yeah. So, and again, if you guys, I'll be sending out an email about this as well and mentioning it. But again, first 20 get the $20 and a year covered. So just letting you know. And on to the stories this week. We're going to start with the first story. Drivers in Milwaukee have concerns over the disconnect in Uber's safety protocol. This is from Fox 6, and they reported, quote, Uber drivers in dangerous situations can normally use a safety feature in the app that connects them to help and police. But that was not the case for Milwaukee drivers. They said that the driver mentioned that this woman started screaming about getting her money back, and her mother joined in from the outside of the car. It looked like she was waving a gun in the air. The driver then hit the emergency button on the app. ADT security answered and told him that because he was in Milwaukee, they couldn't contact the police for him, but send him a link to call Uber. Now, ADT sent this statement, and they said, quote, due to a local ordinance in Milwaukee, which is not specific to Uber, ADT is unable to directly contact 911 on behalf of Uber users in the city. They say they're referring to a specific ordinance that cites a burglar alarm policy. The policy doesn't specifically mention rideshare apps, but it does say police will respond to verified alarms. This is the first time I've seen a story like this, Bryant. This is obviously more of an issue with the ordinance that's passed, but this reminds me a lot of the case we handled with the driver getting assaulted and shot at with Lyft, where the driver does the right thing and no one is there to help.
Yeah, I think just generally speaking, we want to talk about reliances that drivers have on the companies. So the companies advertise that they have a safe program that they've got these safety features in place where if you're in trouble, if your passenger is causing a problem, if you need the police assistance right away, go through our app. We can help you. We can, make sure that you are as safe as you could possibly be. Drivers rely on that. They sign up for the apps because they feel like they're being taken care of. And then there's all these different caveats as to why those safety features might not work. Well, a lot of drivers wouldn't put themselves in these situations if they understood that the safety systems were flawed. Here we're seeing that there's specific reasons why the safety button didn't function. It seems like like you said, it was an ordinance, not a glitch, but this driver had no idea that if I go into the Milwaukee area, I'm not going to be able to use this safety feature. These are things that need to be disclosed. These are facts that drivers need to understand. And it's not that they should be buried deep in the website or deep in the terms of service or wherever else they might, say, use these features at your own risk, or these features aren't 100%. This needs to be front and center because safety needs to be the top priority, and drivers need to understand exactly what they're getting themselves into, exactly what the risks are. And when things do go wrong, they need to understand what the proper protocol is. This driver could have initially called 911 himself. He could have closed out of the app, called 911, but instead he's pushing a button that he thinks is going to connect him to the police. It doesn't work. Those are valuable seconds that pass when the driver is relying on the company to protect him. So the bottom line here is there has to be features that work, and the companies need to be transparent about how those features work or don't work.
Yeah, and a lot of times, driver Uber always says, "Hey, contact us first." Lyft has also said the same thing, and just like you said, you can't. There's so many mixed signals here. The driver's trying to do the right thing, it doesn't work. Oh, there's this caveat in the ordinance. They just you say it all the time. If rideshare isn't safe, it isn't viable. It's bad enough that the wages are low, and there's a lot of struggles just with the lockouts. But when you're on the verge of losing your life, it's a whole different level here. And so, Uber did not respond. I didn't see in this article whether or not Uber has any sort of stance in this. Obviously, I think they're just going to say, well, that's Milwaukee, not us. But we'll see. Ideally, it looks too like this ordinance could be cleared up because they're saying it has to be a burglar alarm. I feel like if they just modify that to say, any sort of app or something attached to the ADT policy, I feel like that would cover this issue. Because they're saying, well, it wasn't a burglar alarm. It was, they contacted us on the app. I feel like that's kind of ridiculous. There needs to be something fixed here.
Yeah, and that is easy, but that's on Uber to recognize that if it's offering a feature, it needs to work. The city of Milwaukee can't go through every single scenario and every app that might put a safety feature on it and decide, does it fit, does it not fit? If Uber's going to put a safety feature on its app, it better make sure that it complies with the laws and the jurisdictions that it's going to be operating in. So, this would be a scenario where it's better to not have the feature. Like that driver relied on that button during his moment of need, and then it didn't work. So if Uber knew, like they should have, that this was not going to work in Milwaukee, well, then as soon as a driver enters the Milwaukee area, that feature should disappear on the app because you're better off not wasting the time trying to connect with somebody and pushing the button over and over and wondering why you're not connecting than to just not see it and say, oh, I better call 911 directly. Like that feature in this scenario, by it not working, created more harm.
Yeah, 100%. It has to change. And I hope we hear more about this or an update to this. But at the moment, this just happened, and that's where we stand, which is just unfortunate. Moving on to the second story, which Brian and I, we discuss this all the time. We know how we feel about AVs, but how does the rest of America feel about AVs? Well, Mashable found out, and they explain, quote, a convincing majority of Americans remain afraid to ride in self-driving vehicles, and this is according to a survey released today by AAA. This was in January. A survey of over 1,000 people found that 61% do not trust self-driving vehicles. Now, they also say they didn't differentiate between what type, but conversely, 13% trust self-driving vehicles and 26% are unsure of the safety. AAA also queried its panel specifically on robotaxis, finding that 74% knew that self-driving cars were available in certain cities, yet 53% said they would not ride in one. Now, while millennial and Gen X drivers were more receptive to robotaxis than baby boomers, majorities of younger generations still said they wouldn't ride in such a vehicle. So interesting. We've always had hesitations. I didn't really know what the public thought. I thought this was a really fascinating study. I will say it's a bit weird that they targeted millennial and Gen X, but not Gen Z. I feel like they would be the most adapt to it. But I feel like we're on the pulse, Bryant. We know what's going on out there.
Well, we're also old men,
We're
so
also old men, I guess. So shaking, fist in the cloud, right?
right. We definitely understand the fear, and the anxiety that goes along with new technology. I mean, that's a thing. This is a brand new technology that most people are going to be hesitant to take on right away. They're going to want to see other people use it. They're going to want to see it, in a vast environment, to see that these things are working. They want, I'm going to want to see hundreds of thousands, millions of rides take place before I get in one. I don't want to be a guinea pig.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I do think that this is going to be something that catches on. When Uber and Lyft first started, people had the same fears. People had been told all their lives, you don't get into a car with a stranger. And here's Uber and Lyft showing up saying, hi, I'm the stranger to give you a ride. This is not new. This is not unfounded. I have a feeling that these numbers are going to flip sooner rather than later, but there needs to be a proof of concept. And before certainly the older population, the boomers get in, it's going to take a lot of time. The younger the rider, the more likely I think they're going to be early adopters of this, which goes with any new technology. I mean, I once I see it working in various cities, I'm not going to be far behind, and I have a feeling that most people, say under 50 or whatever arbitrary line you want to draw, are going to be receptive to that. I'm not sure that my mom's ever going to get in one.
Yeah. And that's why I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't cover Gen Z in this article. And maybe they did. At least what I'm looking at, I didn't see it, because we also know, we've talked about this before, Gen Z is also statistically the least amount of driver's licenses per their age of availability. Like as soon as they could, they're not getting their license. So they're relying on rideshare now. So I'd be curious to see if they trust the tech as it is. Like you said, I think as they get older, it's much harder to trust it. It's also, every time that I think, yeah, sure, I would definitely take one. You see those crazy stories like the guy that was stuck in a Waymo that just did circles for 2 hours, and it's like, oh man, I, like you said, I don't really want to be the guinea pig here. It's inevitable, as we said, but it needs a lot. Yeah, it needs a lot more ironing out with some of this stuff.
It does. Yeah, and as it spreads, it's going to get better and better. We're seeing the technology improving. I have zero doubt that in, however many years, say call 5 years, that there's going to be a lot more of these and people are going to be using them a lot more often. It's just, that's the path that we're on, and the technology is improving at a rate where that's the trajectory. That said, I think that it is going to vary by age bracket forever. I think there's going to be certain older people who just want a driver. They're not ever going to be in a position where they trust a robot to do the driving for them, and that's fine. So that creates space for rideshare as we know it traditionally to exist, for robo-taxis to exist. But over time, the robo-taxi, I do think, is going to take over and be the primary source of rideshare.
Right, I agree. And that actually leads us perfectly into our final story this week, which is Tesla is gearing up to dive into the California market. And this is from Bloomberg, and they reported, quote, Tesla is seeking approval to offer ride-hailing services in California, which is a key step by Elon Musk's company to begin carrying paying customers while its traditional car selling business apparently falters. The electric vehicle manufacturer applied late last year for what's known as a transportation charter party carrier permit from the California Public Utilities Commission. In its communications with the officials, Tesla discussed driver's licenses information and drug testing coordination, which suggests that the company intends to use human drivers at least initially. Tesla is applying for the same type of permit used by Waymo. Now, while Tesla's approval to test these vehicles with the safety driver in California, it doesn't have, nor has applied for, a driverless testing or deployment permit from the State Department, according to the spokesperson. Now, it wasn't immediately clear whether Tesla would obtain the California Public Utilities Commission permit or when the service might start. So interesting here. It's they're diving in, but this is the first time I've actually heard that they're saying there's going to be a driver behind the wheel. I haven't heard this before, but this seems pretty authentic considering they're applying for having driver's licenses.
Yeah, no, this makes sense. This is an interesting business move by Tesla. They can enter the rideshare space, have traditional rideshare business like an Uber or Lyft, and also be working on its autonomous vehicles on the side. And when those are ready, deploy those, getting whatever licenses they need. But this is a nice way for them to enter the space, have people start to think, maybe I'll order a Tesla instead of an Uber. And then all of a sudden, when autonomous vehicles are the mainstream, people already have Tesla in their brain. Tesla's creating the car. That's one way to compete with the Waymos of the world. That's one way to really enter this space, get the market share that we've talked about Uber owning for so long, also work on the competition with Waymo and the autonomous vehicles. And all of a sudden, Tesla's a real player in that space, perhaps the dominant one.
Yeah, I mean, there was also an article I believe we covered last week, or maybe slipped between the weeks, that recently Tesla announced, or Elon announced that they're not cooperating with Uber. So there's some areas here where they're Uber saying they won't be on our platform, and Tesla saying it's not going to be. We're not also being part of Uber. So there's a real, and we've discussed this. I think there's going to be a shift now where Tesla's saying we're taking this seriously. And we're going to see where the chips fall. I think for a while everyone was just hesitant to see what happens, but seeing this article that, hey, we are stepping up into California, like you said, the story before says I don't feel safe in a completely self-driving. Well, maybe you'll feel safe in a self-driving, but with a driver monitoring the car. And then, like you said, brand-wise, then that gets in your head, oh, self-driving, Tesla. Interesting move by them. I think it's a smart move. I mean, for a while it seemed like they were just kind of hell-bent on we're putting the car out there regardless of if it's ready or not.
Right. No, I like it. I don't have any, I don't have that much to add. I think it's a smart business move. I think that, we're going to see some real competition in the rideshare space. And I don't know that a smaller company, an up and rising company is ever going to take the market share from Uber and Lyft, but a company like Tesla certainly could. If they play their cards right, if they get into into the tech space, put out the autonomous vehicles that Uber's clearly not able to develop on its own at this point. There could be real competition, and they have the name recognition and the money to be a player.
Yeah, 100%. So those are our stories this week. As always, Brian, I will give you the floor before we head off into the weekend.
Yeah, always remind everybody that Legal Rideshare is available for free consultations if you find yourself in an accident or injured on the job. We represent drivers, passengers, and any victims of rideshare related events. We can help you collect medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering, any damage that you sustain. We always remind people that time is of the essence. These cases do not get better over time. Evidence disappears, witnesses are harder to find. So please contact us immediately, and we'll be sure to help you maximize what you're entitled to.
Thank you, Brian. And as I like to say, that is the end of This Week in Rideshare. See you next week.